All right, welcome to episode 15 of the All American Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Chris Driscoll, and as per usual, I'm welcomed by my older brother, John Driscoll,
Thanks for having us on again, man.
and my younger brother, Matt Driscoll.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
100%. And we have a first-time guest on the show, which it really doesn't feel like he's a first-time guest just because he's basically our unofficial producer based on how much we talk about behind the scenes about hoops, whether it's the Celtics, whether it's about college hoops, things going on in the NBA. But we'd like to welcome the unofficial fourth member of the All-American Hoops podcast, Matt McCann.
Awesome. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Driscoll boys, for having me on. Excited to blab about these things in front of a camera now. So excited.
Absolutely. So, I know in the intro, not in the intro, in the title page, it has us talking about mainly just college basketball today. But I wanted to just add on one NBA segment because as much as I enjoy college basketball, I always have to sprinkle in some NBA stuff. And what else better than talking about our Boston Celtics, in which Matt McCann is also a massive Celtics fan as well. So he's going to fit right in with us. So anyway, yes, we will be talking about our Boston Celtics. And I was really hoping to talk about the Celtics in a brighter light, like after. And I really wanted to at halftime yesterday against the Hawks. The Celtics are coming off a 9-game win streak. They were supposed to be coming off their 10-game win streak, but then they just blew a 30-point lead to the Hawks. So I had my thoughts on it, but McCann, do you want to actually give your thoughts either on the game itself or just how things are going for the Celtics?
I'll mention a little bit about the win streak. I have some stats here about the 9 games. So I think really when my biggest takeaways about what they've been doing over the past couple of weeks is they had those 2 big Phoenix wins. I think those were huge. I think those told a lot about what you're going to see against actual competition. But when I looked back at the actual 9 games, it really doesn't tell that much to me. 6 of the teams were below 500 over this stretch. It was really just kind of getting the job done. You had the one Milwaukee game, Giannis is out, but they were able to keep their composure even when they came back and they were able to close the game out. And then you just see the game last night. It just kind of brings up a lot of the same sort of struggles that you've been seeing all season from this team, where they get a little bit complacent entering the second half when they're destroying teams. But I really don't think there's any big concerns, and I don't think there's anything really to complain about, as they're almost a 60-win team right now. So
yeah, man, I totally agree with that. Like you said, the 9-win win streak, obviously it's awesome, it's great, but 6 of those teams being under 500 really doesn't show you that much looking into like the playoffs and stuff. But I think the Celtics have proved all year that they are the best team in the league. And I've been seeing, like, usually it's just, people on Twitter and even sometimes in the media, like it's kind of a trend that the Celtics blow leads. On Twitter, I saw Dan Greenberg, the Barstool Celtics guy, tweet, Celtics have 14 blown leads this season. That's less than Denver, Milwaukee, OKC, and the Timberwolves. They also have less fourth quarter blown leads this season too. So I don't think, obviously you blow a 30-point lead last night. It's disgusting to watch. It's a horrible feeling, but I don't think there's much concern at all. They're still the best team in the league.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both Matts here on this topic. Look, people want to stay. Fans on Twitter want to sit around and wait for the Celtics to mess up. And frankly, this year, there just haven't been a lot of opportunities for them. So when the Celtics do screw up and lose games and blow leads, it just seems so magnified. And I think that's what happens with great teams, is that when they play well, when they do good things, it kind of flies under the radar, but every mistake is magnified. And I agree with both Matts. I'm not concerned, but I will say that was awful to watch. But other than that, I'm not concerned. I think they'll be all right. And let the fans get their jokes off now.
Yeah, you got to get those jokes out of their system. It's going to be too late when Jason Tatum is going to be holding that Bill Russell trophy in June. So, all of you guys nailed it on the head. Obviously, every team can complain about their blown leads. It's a make or miss lead. make or miss league. Obviously, it's very tough to watch your team do that, but based on the numbers itself, it's tough to say that. But yeah, obviously, I think the number one concern besides, the number one concern besides blowing the leads is offensive rebounding. For as much as Porzingis has helped the team with that, and the Celtics do have strong rebounders. They have Porzingis, Horford, and Tatum, and even Jalen's not a weak rebounder at all. So it's just a matter of them boxing out and actually getting down there. But yeah, we mentioned.
I think there's a difference between late game execution and blowing leads. I think if you want to say that you're a little concerned about the Celtics late game execution sometimes, I think that's a very valid criticism.
Absolutely.
I think blowing leads is such a lame thing because, these NBA players are going to score 40, 45 points in a quarter. Leads are going to come and go. It's a game of runs. But I think everybody on this panel here watching the Celtics, sometimes in late game situations, you're sitting there going, what the hell are they thinking? Get something moving. But I think that's more of a valid criticism than just blowing leads.
Yeah, a little too often, and they have improved on this, but it's way too often you have JT or Jalen or Jason just like dribbling out the clock and then either giving like a last second pass off to someone who needs to chuck up a three, or they chuck up their own three. So, yeah, and that's where Drew and Derek White are very beneficial. I'm not using those two being out as an excuse to lose the game because they had Trey out too. But yeah, like as far as goes for chest late game execution, Drew is like one of those X factors there. But as we mentioned, the Celtics they already clinched the East first of all, so that's one piece of motivation as to why they weren't as motivated, which obviously not a good thing. But their magic number is 5 up on the Nuggets and the Thunder. So the Celtics do play the Thunder, I believe, on next Thursday. So maybe they'll have the entire league clinched by then. Maybe not, but hopefully that'll be a night that they take opportunity of and maybe and slam the door there. All right, so that's enough NBA talk for today. Yeah, 2 episodes ago, like last episode, we had Noah Dalzell on. She was awesome. Very unsurprising there. And then, but the episode before that, we had both Matt's friend Timmy on, in which we talked about college hoops and gave our predictions regarding the tournaments. I think each of us, definitely me, Matt, and Tim, each had a bad take. I don't know if John did or not, but or not a bad take, but a cool take, I should say, that ended up not aging so well. Matt and I's take was Kentucky going very far, and I know that Timmy had Auburn also getting past the first round. First we'll just address those games. We're not going to go through each and every game because we'll be sitting here all night. But I guess Matt Driscoll, do you have any takeaways from the first round and any games that really stuck out to you that either wowed you or just really surprised you?
Yeah, you talked about 2 of them. You said that me and you both had 1 bad take. I actually had 2 really bad takes. I had Kentucky in my Final Four and Auburn in my final. So really great look for me. Shows you my college basketball knowledge. But, the Yale-Auburn game was a great look for Timmy and a horrible look for Timmy as a Ivy League fan himself. It's a great look for the Ivy League. But we both had them going to the Final Four in the final. Auburn was in the Ken Palm rankings, was the 4th team ranked nationally in those rankings. And they were also up 10 with 7:35 left in the second half. Yale turned the ball over 11 times and missed 10 free throws and still won that game by 2. So obviously Auburn, I thought their depth and they were hot. They won the SEC championship, would cause them to make a little run, but I was extremely wrong.
John, want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think I had a bunch of incorrect predictions as well, as I do every single year I fill out this bracket. I don't mean to brag here, but I do have a intact Final Four still. Don't ask me about my Elite 8 though, because I think I had Kentucky and Auburn in my Elite 8. I think I kind of built my bracket around, because I feel like a lot of us aren't super up to date with college hoops. I kind of just did very bare minimum research and kind of picked and chose the teams that prioritize defense and are good defensively, and Auburn was, if not first, then second defensively. That's why I picked Iowa State, and they look all right so far, but we'll see. But yeah, I think Auburn shocked a lot of people. Kentucky, I think we mentioned it on the podcast last week that the reason why, Timmy was hesitant to pick them to go deep was that they don't play defense. And it kind of did seem to bite them in the ass. But those were kind of the two that really busted my bracket early on.
Yeah, John, like you said about Kentucky, I didn't know if you guys saw this, but there's a clip of former Nova coach Jay Wright was talking about how Coach Calipari is doing a great job with these kids, but that's the thing, they're only 18 years old. They're only there for a year. And they're playing against guys. One guy in Oakland was, 24, 25. They're playing against grown men. So it seems like, experience and defense is still important in college hoops. It's still important in this tournament. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a that's a great point by Jay Wright. It's actually, I'm pretty sure it's a point that actually Charles Barkley made a couple years ago. It's not only just a matter of guys being older and grown men. It's a matter of those guys usually have been playing together for 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. And yeah, as much as talent matters more overall, in at least in the early rounds of the tournaments, you often see some of those schools, very often it's actually the Catholic schools as well, that's just overall end up making some noise there. And that's, but yeah, and we talked about Kentucky with Oakland. My takeaway from Oakland was that one guy, I forgot it. I completely forgot his name. I should have that written down, but he hit those. His shot chart was like a Mike D'Antoni, Joe Mazzulla wet dream, where there was just he just had 1 million 3-pointers and probably over exaggerating, but 5 layups total throughout the entire season. So that was a really, really funny thing to see throughout that. But McCann, do you have anything to add onto the first round stuff?
So that was Jake Golke. He shot 200 something threes and 8 2-pointers the entire season. And actually, in the Kentucky game, I have this written down. He had 8 dribbles, so real Klay Thompson performance. Not anymore because Klay is washed, but that's a different argument entirely. I think another really interesting round one game that I was on the edge of my seat the entire time watching was the Dayton-Nevada game. I mean, you had a 17-0 run coming out of the half. I mean, it was just exciting to watch. I think Dayton showed a lot of composure. I had them, so that was huge for my bracket. I was in the 97th percentile after day one, and then day two came around and just completely punched me in the face. But it's been a lot of fun. I think like you guys touched on, Auburn just had a lot of mistakes in the second half. I mean, they had plenty of opportunities to take the game away. You saw early their one player getting ejected with that flagrant 2. Don't know if that was entirely legitimate, but they were able to pick themselves up and move on. It just seemed like the wheels fell off at the end, but a lot of mental mistakes. I think you guys are right with the whole experience thing. It really is important to have that chemistry and have that composure late in games, especially in the earlier rounds, because you really just never know what's going to happen in these games.
And I think we referenced Timmy picking Auburn to make a pretty deep run. We do have to give him some credit on his Purdue takes on the podcast last week. I think me especially, I kind of joined the masses in taking Purdue to get booted early, just based on what's happened over the last couple of years, and maybe some deep hatred for Zach Edey. I don't hate him, but Purdue looks like a top 2, if not the best, probably second behind UConn in most dominant teams. I mean, granted, they played, Grambling State and Utah State, but still, they're taking care of business. I think they look really good, and I think they should be a top 3 team going forward in this Sweet 16.
Yeah, they look awesome, but they're also playing Gonzaga, who just absolutely destroyed Kansas. I think Purdue will win that game. I don't know if we're doing our picks in this pod, but yeah, both teams look unbelievable. But Timmy pointed out last year offense was a problem for Purdue. That was not the problem against Utah State. It seemed like they couldn't miss in the second half. And Zach Edey's just an absolute tank, so they'll be definitely a team to watch.
If you want to bring up picks in this round, I have Gonzaga over TCU, who was booted in the first round by Utah State.
Yeah, we love that. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, John, Matt, and I have a group chats in which we have like we don't have a list unofficially, but we can easily make a list of guys that will take shots at unsolicited, and Matt just pulled out one of those by mentioning Klay Thompson's name, which was very unnecessary, but no judgment whatsoever there. Yeah, but we'll move on to the second round though. Second round had some great games. But actually, one thing that I forgot to mention when I brought up the first round is we talked. It's been a lot of talk. Like people love talking about how there's March Madness is the best tournament because there's always so much upsets. Which there was a handful of upsets. We mentioned the Kentucky game. But that being said, the fact that the Sweet 16 has the Sweet 16 in all four brackets, the 1 and the 2 seed survived, made it there, which usually doesn't happen. I don't know when the last time that happened was, but in probably the 10 plus years that I've been watching college basketball, I don't really think that there's been a situation like that. Could be wrong though. But yeah, there were still some pretty good games for the second round. Yeah, anyone? Yeah. John, do you want to maybe bring up any of those games?
Yeah, the one game that really stood out to me, I think it was Sunday night, Houston, Texas A&M, which was an awesome game. I think Houston's been one of the more impressive teams to watch this year. Granted, they went to overtime against Texas A&M, and it was a very close game. They got into some crazy foul trouble. I didn't watch the first half close enough to see if it was like genuine fouls, or was it like just refs kind of trying to keep the 9 seed in the game. So I can't comment on that, but awesome game. Obviously went to overtime. They had a buzzer beater 3 to tie the game to send it to OT. And I just I forget the name of the player that inbounded the ball on the baseline. He kind of threw this like skip pass to just any guy that was open around the 3-point line. I thought that was a crazy pass. Anybody who's played basketball and is inbounded from the baseline knows that that's a terrifying pass to have to make. There's not much you can do. You can't move. So really great game. I'm kind of glad Houston won just because I think they were the better team and they have more of a shot against Duke. But Houston Duke's going to be a great Sweet 16 game.
Yeah, that was an unbelievable game. Another great game in the round of 32 was Oregon Creighton. They went to double OT and Creighton kind of pulled away in the double overtime. I think the final was they won by like 13 or something. But 4 players on Creighton had over 18 points. That just shows you they're a super well-rounded team. They're playing Tennessee next round. It's going to be a crazy game. But Creighton is helping my Big East agenda. The Big East got robbed agenda a little bit more by winning these close games because I think they totally have a shot to absolutely win it.
I thought that game was unbelievable. I think, again, we go back to that sort of inexperience and the lack of composure there. Oregon, their center, had an absolutely phenomenal game, really breakout game for him, and then had a chance to ice the game with free throws and 1-1, missed the first, and then Creighton's able to take advantage of that and force OT, and then they were just riding that high the rest of the time. So
I will say that the 1-1 free throw model, at least for the single bonus, not double bonus, is awesome. Granted, if it was my team and it was 1-1, I'd probably be like, this is the stupidest thing ever. But I do think it's pretty cool that, say you're down 3 with a couple seconds left and you foul, there's a chance you get a missed free throw and you can run and try to tie the game. I think that's pretty cool.
it's a Jaylen Brown nightmare.
That's the exact thing I was going to say, and I'm happy that someone else was able to bring up the negativity of Jaylen Brown before me, because I'd rather not be that person to do that. But yeah, another fantastic game was NC State versus Oakland. Obviously, Oakland was coming off their miracle win, and usually when stuff like that happens, they either it's one of two things happens: either they continue on with their Cinderella run, or they just completely fall off and like fall over themselves. But Oakland really hung around. I was hoping that they'd win, but I really like NC State as well. They seem to be really well coached. But at the end of the day, Oakland had a couple of guys that fouled out and had to go small against a really solid rebounding team. So that was that was a great game to watch. But also would have been really cool to see a 14 seed go past it. But obviously, seeing an 11 seed in the Sweet 16 isn't that much worse. Cool. Yeah, as long as no one else has anything to say about the round of 32. I guess we can move on to some of our Sweet 16 picks. So I think what we'll do is I think we'll just we have a lot of time left on like last episode. So we'll I guess we could just go through each bracket. So we'll talk about the East. So the East we have the two games are UConn versus San Diego State and Illinois versus Iowa State. We can go around and give our picks. We could do that for both games actually. And if we want to dive deep into any of those games, we can definitely do that. But Matt McCann, do you want to give your picks for the Eastern bracket?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. So I think UConn is just one of those teams that is going to make it to the Final Four. I think they just have better talent than a lot of these other teams, and they're able to execute in a way that you don't really see a lot in college basketball, but they're really just a professional looking team, and I don't think they'll have much issue with San Diego State. I think San Diego State does have a few tricks up their sleeve with like their sort of spurt scoring and all that, but I don't think that'll be much of an issue. And then I have a really tight game against Iowa State and Illinois, but Iowa State just plays great defense and great team basketball, and I think that's a recipe for success when you get into these later rounds. So those are my picks.
Yeah, not to be boring, Matt, but I'm gonna agree with both of those picks. I think UConn is the best team in the nation. I think last tournament they won every game by 15. It might have been 10, but I believe it's 15. And they legitimately might do that again this year. They're just absolutely rolling through teams. St. John's only lost to them by 5 in the Big East semifinals and still did not make the tournament. But I digress about that. And like you said about Iowa State, I think Illinois is a really good team. I didn't watch them at all in the regular season, but the first two games they look very impressive. But Iowa State, I think defense is insanely important in this tournament, and Iowa State's one of the best defensive teams in the nation. So I'm going to take them over Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it best. UConn looks pretty unstoppable. They're just, I think Hurley said it, they're just whooping on teams. And he has the right to say that. They're making pretty easy work of whoever they play. San Diego State struggled against UAB and then ran into a Yale team that I guess was maybe kind of burnt out and kind of steamrolled them. But yeah, I take UConn pretty easily in that, but who knows? It is March. In terms of Iowa State, Illinois, I've mentioned a couple times, I do have Iowa State winning the championship. That's like my narrative that I'm pushing recently. I think that if Iowa State and UConn match up in the Elite Eight, that'll be probably one of UConn's biggest tests. I think that'll be an awesome game. But I will say, Matt said it best, I wouldn't count out Illinois either. They've looked really, really good these first two games. I don't think they've played a defense as good as Iowa State. That's why I do have Iowa State winning, but definitely wouldn't be surprised at all if Illinois pulls it out.
Yeah, all great points. I think UConn is one of the best college teams that I've seen in a while. I'm not going to go far and put them on the same pedestal as AD's Kentucky, but they've been dominant all season long. Good to know that Matt is still very, very much bitter about St. John's not making the tournaments, even in the Sweet 16, because they could be here right now. But Who knows? And yeah, UConn. I'd be shocked if San Diego State wins this game, but then again, it's March Madness, so anything can happen. Illinois, Iowa State is kind of a toss-up. Obviously, we love Iowa State's work hard, play hard energy. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. I might lean Illinois because they just because like they've been a little more consistent all year long. But yeah, definitely wouldn't be shocked either way there. But yeah, to add on to one more point about UConn, yeah, as much as I talked about how dominant they are and everything, yeah, I mentioned that wouldn't put them on the same level as AD's Kentucky, but I'm also not as big a fan of them as Mike Greenberg, who said that he believes that they can make the play-in tournament, but in the NBA, but we all know that's not true. It's the college basketball isn't as good as the NBA.
The fact that he gets paid to talk about basketball and none of us do is infuriating.
It's not fun for sure. Yeah. Come on. And and I don't even think he's close to being the worst one in ESPN. Honestly, that's the funny thing. Cool. Yeah. So we'll go down. We'll go down the bracket there. We're going to talk about the West now. So that's between UNC versus Alabama and Clemson versus Arizona. Matt Driscoll, do you want to give your take on those games?
Yeah. So I have UNC over Bama. Kind of my same point to why I like UConn and Iowa State. Bama really does not play any defense. Their offense is absurd, but I think that the no defense will catch up to them in this tournament, and I have UNC beating them. And sorry, the next game is Arizona and Clemson. I'll actually take an upset here. I know Arizona is coming into the tournament. I think they were top 15 offense and defense. If it might be top 25, don't quote me on that. But I really like how Clemson's been playing. A lot of people were down on them at the beginning of the tournament, but they really showed composure there against Baylor, who Baylor missed their free throws. Clemson made their free throws at the end of the game to make the Sweet 16. So I'm going to take an upset. Shout out Tommy Guzzo and Jack Cunningham, Clemson University students. So I'm going to pick them over Arizona.
I was actually talking to Tommy Guzzo yesterday. He was asking me what I think because of the USC Pac-12. Did not watch a lot of USC basketball this year, so I can't attest to Arizona regular season. They did get upset, but that's besides the point. I think Arizona kind of just has too much size, and they have a lot of reliable shot makers where I think they won't collapse like Baylor did with the free throws. I think they'll be able to get to the line at will with their size, and they'll be able to execute in a way that Clemson just can't really handle. I think it will be a really good game, and I think Clemson has a lot of great guys that it's just they play exciting basketball. But I think Arizona's going to be on top. And then with UNC, it was kind of been the theme of this whole podcast. I have written down UNC experience. They have a bunch of guys like Baycott. They've been in the system. They know what they have to do, how they have to do it, and they've been doing it this tournament. And I think they're just going to continue to do that. I have them winning the whole thing, so we'll see.
Is it too mean to call Jack and Tommy soon to be Clemson alum? Does that hurt you guys too much?
Way too soon. Way too soon.
Okay, we'll wait for that later. Yeah, I agree with both you guys on UNC Alabama. I think Alabama kind of ran into the 13 and then the 12 seed. And yeah, they took care of business, but like you said, defense wasn't really anything impressive. You go down to Clemson, Arizona. When I filled out my bracket, I have Arizona over. Actually, I had Arizona over New Mexico State, I think. But University of New Mexico. But that being said, I think Clemson's been pretty impressive. They took care of business against an 11 seed, and then they beat Baylor. And Arizona, I do think that they are one of the more talented teams in the tournament. But that being said, like they did beat Dayton, but it wasn't really a throwaway game. They kind of had to grind for it. So gun to my head, I definitely pick Arizona, but I think Clemson's a pretty strong 6 seed that can make some noise.
Yeah, we're all in agreement about UNC and Alabama. Offensive juggernauts usually only go too far in the tournaments. So yeah, all of you also give the points. Yeah, I think that UNC is better coached, and yeah, better on defense, and just more of a sustainable team in a long run. So yeah, that's pretty easy pick there. But again, common theme with March Madness, you never know. And then we got Clemson versus Arizona. I picked Arizona to go to the Final Four. I just think that they've been very consistent all year long, despite even though they had like 8 losses, but feels like they've also been pretty well coached and everything along the way. I hope that Cunningham and Gozo aren't upset with me and John for going the other way there. But yeah, so yeah, UNC Arizona is what I believe is going to be the Elite Eight game, and I think that'll be that'll be a really, really fun game to watch too. Cool. So as long as you guys do not have anything to add on, we'll go over to this other side of the bracket in which we have the South. So yeah, we mentioned Houston playing Texas A&M. Houston playing Texas A&M. Houston just beat Texas A&M in that Austin game. They are playing Duke, and then NC State is playing Marquette. So whose turn is it? I think it's I want to say it's John's turn, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, I think Duke was one of those. Duke's one of those teams where it's just like, it's Duke. I mean, granted they were a 4 seed, but I think a lot of people somewhat take them for granted, just based on oh, it's Duke. Yeah, they're in the tournament, but they didn't really make any noise that much this year. But I mean, granted, through these first 2 games, they've smoked teams. Obviously, they beat the 13 and then the 12 seed, but there's something to be said over winning by such a large margin, no matter who you're playing. So I think they've been playing really well. My pick is Houston. I think Houston is a really, really fun team to watch. They play really good defense. Granted, they did play a pretty long game. They went into overtime versus Texas A&M. I think that had a lot to do with foul trouble and guys fouling out. But it is impressive when I think they had 3 or 4 guys foul out, and you still find a way to win in overtime against a pretty good Texas A&M team. So this will be a great game. This might be one of my favorite Sweet 16 games to watch. I do have Houston, though. And then I guess I'll go down to we have NC State and Marquette. NC State's been really fun to watch. I don't know how they ended the regular season, but they went on that five wins in 5 days throughout the ACC tournament. They're riding the hot hand. 2 great wins in this tournament. I do think I'm going to stick with my Big East bias. I do think Marquette pulls this out, but NC State's been fun, and March Madness is all about momentum, and NC State certainly has it. So that'll be a good one too.
Yeah, John, like you said, March Madness is all about momentum. So I'm actually going to take NC State over Marquette. I think my Big East bias is getting beaten by my Shaka Smart hate right now. I think that's one of the main reasons why I'm picking NC State. But like you said, they haven't lost since the beginning of the ACC tournament. 5 wins in 5 days. Then you come out and you win two games in the big tournament. So I think NC State will beat Marquette. And then for Houston and Duke, like you said, Duke beat the 13 and 12 seed. But JMU was a very, very good 12 seed. They beat Wisconsin, who was a 5 seed. I know a lot of people weren't high on them, but I knew a lot of people were picking JMU to beat Wisconsin. I know a lot of people weren't surprised about that. But like we were saying all podcasts, it's about defense. It's about experience. And Houston was the best team in the best conference this year. I know, a close game kind of scares you. Like, it was against, I forget if Texas A&M. I think they were the 9 seed. But it just shows you they could win close games. So I have Houston over Duke.
All right. This is pretty fun. We all have different outcomes. So I have Duke over Houston. I think Duke is just coming out with so much confidence, so much momentum, like John said. I think it's they've been playing a lot of good team basketball, and I think Filipowski is really due for a big game. I mean, the first game, I think he had 3 points, and then this one, 14, he shot well, but it really was the Jared McCain show. I think it's his time to take the reins and kind of show out. Also, just want to say, like you were saying, Duke's kind of just been the sort of their Duke. They've been here. I think they've kind of gone away from that whole chip on their shoulder mentality that you've seen with a lot of these great Duke teams, and I think they're kind of bringing that back, being seeded at 4. They haven't played great competition, but this is their time to really bring back that chip on their shoulder, play with some confidence, and punch Houston in the mouth after they're coming off a pretty tough battle in overtime. Then I have NC State over Marquette. Like Driscoll was saying, they've just been so red hot. I think they're severely underseeded. I don't think they should have been an 11 seed. I think they're kind of showing the committee that now. The one thing that I really like about them is that they're able to control the 3 against teams. They held Oakland to a very low 3-point percentage. They held Texas Tech to below 30% from 3. So I think Marquette has kind of been relying on that shooting in the past 2 rounds, and I think NC State will be able to control that and help them get the win. So.
Yeah, good stuff, guys. So I am going to go. Before I get my pick, yeah, it's funny how people talk about Duke and just it's just like their consistency through the years, and it's funny how this is carried over even since Coach K retiring. They replaced him with someone. They replaced him with another team, with another guy. Really seems how they're motivated. And yeah, I think that they're going to go back to having that chip on their shoulder mentality, especially because they're the underdogs now. So yeah, I'm going to take Duke in a very, very close game against Houston. And then for NC State versus Marquette, I feel like this is a game where literally anything can happen, because obviously NC State's already upsets Texas Tech, and they didn't really upset Oakland by any stretch. But however, Oakland was coming off, was really hoping that they were gonna continue on with their momentum, and then NC State kind of punched them in the mouth. Or not punched them in the mouth. It was a very close game, but you know what I mean. But the safe pick would be picking Marquette, and since I haven't watched either of these teams a ton outside the tournament, I guess I'll go with just the better team. So yeah, I'll go Marquette, but wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if NC State pulled it out. Cool. Yeah, again, as long as no one else has anything to say, we'll go down to the final bracket, and that's the Midwest. So we have Purdue versus Gonzaga, and also Creighton versus Tennessee. Matt McCann, would you like to go first here?
Yeah, sure. I have Gonzaga over Purdue. There's already been a little bit of talks about Purdue in this tournament. They're great. They're awesome. They have Zach Edey, who's just been such a force. I think he really improved from last year, and I think their roster, I was watching their last game, and the announcers were mentioning how they just really were able to surround the 7-4 force with a bunch of shooters and a bunch of guys that can create off the dribble and can do a bunch of things. But I think Gonzaga is just the better coach team, and I think that they've been showing a lot of really sound basketball, and I think that they're going to be able to execute in this. I think it's going to be probably the best game of the Sweet 16. I think this is like a really well-matched matchup, but I think Gonzaga has it. And then for the next game, I'm picking the best player. Connect is just so good. I think Tennessee has it. I think Creighton's been on a great run, and I think they've been able to execute, but I think Tennessee just has a little bit too much firepower in terms of their offense, and I think they're going to be able to overpower Creighton with that
one. Yeah, Matt, like you said, Connect on Tennessee, obviously SEC Player of the Year. He had a really bad shooting night last round against Texas, and Tennessee still pulled out a close win. So I think that was something to note. Although I would like my Big East bias to show here, I do have Tennessee over Creighton. I actually have Tennessee winning the whole thing. I think Creighton's a great team. I wouldn't be surprised if they did make a run and actually did make the Final Four. St. John's beat them by 16 in February, late February, by the way. But I do think, I'm going to pick the best player here, and I'm going to pick Tennessee over Creighton. For Purdue Gonzaga, I think this is going to be one of the best games of the tournament. Mark Few's a great coach, and I think Purdue is one of the best teams in the league, in the nation, I should say. I do have Purdue beating them. Their offense has been unbelievable. When Edey gets swarmed, he kicks it out to a shooter, and they've been making their shots. I know they played Grambling State and Utah State, which aren't really great teams by any means, but they destroyed them. Like, you play the teams who are in front of you, and they have looked really good playing them. So I have Purdue over Gonzaga.
Well, thank you to the Mats for stealing all of my talking points. I'll be pretty quick because I agree with a lot of what you said. I do have Tennessee over Creighton. Big East bias is thrown out the window here. Tennessee's been rolling. SEC Player of the Year. They've, even with him not looking the way he has in the past, they still find ways to win. And when he turns it on, it's gonna be fun to watch. I do have actually Tennessee going to the Final Four out of this bracket. And then just bumping it up to Purdue Gonzaga. I agree with you, Matt, that I think this is going to be one of the best games of the tournament. I probably wouldn't have thought that at the beginning because I was so down on Purdue. But the way they've looked in the past two games and the way Gonzaga's looked, Gonzaga's been blowing guys out. Granted, they played McNeese in the first round, but very impressive win over Kansas. I have Gonzaga winning this game. For the reasons that you said. I think Mark Few is top 5 coach, and that might be speaking, that might be undervaluing him. I think in years past, he's had really good players on his team, and this year there's not really any guys who, jump off the page at you for the most part, and he's still finding a way to coach really good games and pull out wins. So I do have Gonzaga winning over Purdue.
All great point, gentlemen. So, as John said, it seems like everyone had some great points there. So, I'll be brief too. For the Purdue Gonzaga game, I 100% agree that I think it's going to be a fantastic game. I'm going to repeat what Matt and John said. Mark Few is one of my favorite coaches in the league. He's been there 100 years, and it feels like he hasn't really lost a step either, because obviously, if people talk about how you can coach for a long time and there'd be no problem because there's no physical aspects of it, but that's not necessarily true. Because obviously you got to do a lot of movement, you got to travel a lot, and especially in college too, during like a high stressful time. So it's I always find it extremely impressive when coaches coach for a long time, because it really doesn't happen as often as people think. So Mark Few has been great, and as impressive as I was with Purdue this past weekend. And even though they might have the better overall roster, I'm going to go with Gonzaga and their and just their schemes and everything. And then for Creighton, Tennessee, again, I haven't watched these teams a ton this year. I'm going to go Creighton though, just because I'm not too biased to the Big East, because I'm not really as into St. John's as Matt is, but even though Tennessee does have the better the better player, I do think that Creighton has both the better roster top to bottom, and are also they have the better schemes, and probably are going to be able to adjust a little bit better based on their experience. So Gonzaga and Tennessee is what I believe will be the Midwest Elite 8. Cool. And I know, just to finish off the show, I know that we said we weren't going to no, we didn't say we weren't going to, we didn't mention that we're going to talk about this, but do all of us have our championship picks still intact? I have UConn. I don't know about everyone else. From
our winner or the matchup?
Winner.
Yeah.
John, you do too?
I do too. I was just actually wondering if Matt decided to switch his pick in our family bracket from St. Mary's at the last second.
No, I did not. I thought the Gales were hot. They won one game since
Throwaway bracket.
Since Christmas.
Of course, yeah. But I had UConn over Oh no, it was UConn over Gonzaga. So yeah. So I also have my championship team in there. I'm still feeling very strongly about that. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they played each other last year in the tournament as well. And as much as I would root for Gonzaga in that game, I would still take UConn very confidently. So, yeah, if you guys want to give what you think your championship game is going to be, if you need a couple of seconds, that's fine. But yeah. But yeah, feel free to jump in if you're pretty confident in your pick as it stands.
I'll start. For my first original bracket, I did make a second chance bracket because I'm salty about how bad I did. In my original bracket, though, I have UNC over Houston. I think when I looked at those teams, they were able to execute the most. I think UConn is a great team, but I have UNC with the slight edge just because of experience. And then I had Houston over Kansas, which didn't really work out. Then in my second chance bracket, I kept UNC. They're my winner. And then I have Duke because I wanted to switch things up. And I think that they've just been so hot. I don't think they're a 4 seed. I think they're playing higher. And I think it's really going to be a test this upcoming matchup. But if they play well here, I see no reason why they can't make the final.
I'll go next. My winner originally I picked was Tennessee. I still think they're going to win. Obviously, SEC Player of the Year, and I like their depth a lot. Like last game proved, they just checked connect shot 5 of 18 from the field, and they still won. And I think they're going to be playing UConn. I think UConn's the best team in the nation. They're led by former Loyola Greyhound Camp Spencer, who I think is turning 35 next month. So he's been very experienced in college basketball. But I'm going to pick Tennessee just out of pure hatred of Dan Hurley, and maybe he'll choke in the championship and make me happy.
Yeah, in my original bracket, I had Iowa State over Houston. It's I don't see much of a reason to stray from that. I'm going to stick with what I picked. I think they've both been pretty impressive, especially defensively, throughout their first 2 games. That being said, they definitely have some obstacles to go through. There's some pretty talented teams in front of them that they have to get through in order to, get to the final. I think Iowa State, I think they can get past Illinois, it'll be a tough game, but I do think they'll win that. And then they do have to run into UConn, which is that's going to be a great game if it does happen. And then in terms of Houston, they're running into a red hot Duke team. So they both, I still like them to make the final, but a lot of talent in front of them.
Seemed like a great way to end the show, with all of us giving our picks for the finals. Not many edits that we had to make from last week. But yeah, gentlemen,
Yes.
great show as always.
I didn't check out the agenda. When are we talking about who won our fantasy basketball league? Are we going to talk next week, maybe?
No, let's address it right now. We can address it right now. Congratulations to John, aka Al's Whorehouse, in honor of Al Horford in winning our fantasy league. Underdog run of the century. I believe John was the 5 seed, or was he the 6 seed? 5 or 6?
6 seed.
You were the 6 seed. Okay. Oh yeah, I was the 5 seed. Both of us kind of went on our own Cinderella runs because I did win 7 of my last 8 games in the regular season, but then choked in the playoffs to Timmy actually in the first round.
Chris,
excited to do it next year too. It was a fun league.
Yeah, 100%. As commissioner, I would also just want to congratulate Matt, Team Dogging, for coming in 6th, because in the group chat we were doing victory laps for making the playoffs and coming in 6th. So congratulations, Matt.
Got to be in it to win it. I'll stand by that.
Matt's just salty that he's the only one on this panel that didn't make the playoffs, despite having more points than pretty much all of us.
Fourth most points in the league. I don't know who came up with that stat, who's been looking at that the most, but 4th most points in the league, didn't make the playoffs. I'm not bitter about it still, so very good.
That's okay.
Team
All right.
dogging them coming different next year.
Yeah, my team name is All American Hooper. Just the regular stuff. Cool. All right. Well, gentlemen, great show as always. John, Matt, appreciate you guys coming on as per usual. Matt McCann, this certainly will not be the last time you'll be a guest in the show.
I hope not.
Hopefully, you'll be on sooner, but hopefully at the latest you'll be on either the day after or the week after the Celtics win the finals. But knock wood there. But okay, cool. So just to finish off the show, we'll do like we used to do with my plugs. Like and subscribe to Chilltown Hoops. Also join to become a member, in which you can eventually call onto the show, and then hop on the panel, which would be an awesome gig. More great guys to talk to. You can also follow my personal accounts, as it mentions on the bottom there. It already just passed, but it's All American Hooper on all social media platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And lastly, also look at my column on primetimesportstalk.com. I talk about mostly basketball there, but then I've also in the past week been writing about baseball as well, and I do football once in a while too. So yeah, those are all my plugs. Gentlemen, as always, thanks for coming on. For those of you watching now, thanks for watching, and I hope everyone has a great night.